Entrepreneurs are fleeing their home state to go to states like Florida and Texas. The main reason for this is because of high taxes in the states that they're leaving. What are y'all's thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, no surprise really. I mean, when you have a guy like Elon Musk who leaves his home state of California to move to Texas, and in 1 year he saved, I think, like 13, 7 or 13 billion, something like that. And that's because you got states like New York and California with these insanely high income taxes and just the cost of living in general. I think there was a study done a while ago that if you make $100,000 in California versus in Texas, you end up saving about 10 or 15,000 more of that when you live in a state like Texas, just because of the cost of living being significantly cheaper on rent, groceries, gas, everything just in general all around. It compounds so much more when you're in a state like California. So it definitely makes sense. And just in general, you've seen a lot of companies, tons of jobs and opportunities opening up in states like Texas and Florida. So, it makes sense kind of why so many are wanting to come here and open up businesses.
Patrick Bet-David said it best. The U-Haul CEO said that the California governor was their number one salesman. And the reason that is because all the business owners and everyone in there they start to question, is it really worth it for me to live here if I'm going to lose, a quarter of my wealth just by living here? Like, is it that good? And what the sad part is, especially when you look at the states and just the local communities, is that when you have these high-income individuals or, even just the general population in general, when people start to move in droves to these other states, is that they're losing their business, they're losing tax dollars, they're losing all that funding for startups, because a lot of people, and entrepreneurs, they fund and invest in companies that are local to them because they're close by, and if they're moving away, that company's going to another state.
Yeah, I was going to say, to add to that list, they're losing the job creation as well. They're losing those jobs for people in that state pretty much, and especially if those jobs are moving with the company to that new state. It's crazy to think about. California has 13.3% state income tax rate, whereas Texas has 0. And that's the difference in between that $10,000 to $15,000 that you make just by living in Texas. It was said that pretty much 3% of families, Americans, move out of their home state every single year. What you're seeing, though, is when you rank all the states based off the amount that they tax, how much you're going to be taxed living in that state, the bottom 25 saw 20 of them increase in population in 2020.
I think a perfect example of how this income and really the taxes are affecting people moving from state to state is if you look at Florida, for every high income earning household over 200,000, they are gaining 2 for every one that they lose, and a state like California is losing 2 for every one that they gain. So it just shows you that, hey, people are making the transition from these high tax states to these states that have great tax benefits just because it just makes sense.
Yeah, and just in general, I mean, these, like you said, the high tax states, they're not pro-business. They're states like California, New York, there's so many regulations on businesses, and that's why people are really choosing to go to those pro-business states like Texas, like Florida, and again, start their business endeavors and just kind of like grow and prosper. And that's why you look at a city like Austin, where there's a massive entrepreneur culture and startups are thriving, and it's really a hub for that kind of innovation down here. And that's why so many people are kind of making the transition to, these types of states.
And it just makes sense. If you're an entrepreneur running a business, you want to feel that your business is in the location that it's going to be felt most welcome. Whereas if you're in a state like California, New York, you could be trying to get some project done or pretty much just some advancement in your business, and you might have something with the state that is pushing back on you just because they're not pro-business. They don't want to see that advance. And so obviously it makes sense for them to move out. What do you guys think that states like California and New York could potentially do to really, and maybe it's just lower taxes, but is there anything else that they could do to just try to keep these businesses from leaving and going to these other states? Because if this trend keeps up for the next 5 years, you're going to see so many different trends in the market. It's going to be crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I think it really comes down to, again, you're going to have to, cut regulations, reduce excess taxes on production, on shipping, all those things that, again, make it more where a business can go and open up and they can lower the cost of them to operate successfully. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. I still think, states, again, we'll take California, for example, would be a great place to open up a business. It's got to make sense economically. And if it doesn't, and you're not at a certain point in your business yet, you're just going to go there and get crushed. We've seen it happen over and over again. To whether you're an entertainer, a musician, a business owner, it doesn't matter. It's like you're going to go out there and get crushed because of the cost of living is so high. So I think, unfortunately, it's too late for that, and they're only increasing taxes in states like that. So it's just, there's a lot that they'd have to do.
I totally agree. I think it really just comes down to you have to change your policies and you have to change your taxes, because I just think it's unfortunate. You look at a place like LA, for example, great place to collaborate with other people that are like-minded, but it just doesn't, I feel like it just doesn't make sense anymore when you can go to a city like Austin and pretty much get the same thing with better benefits and better regulations.